Agriculture runs deep in this valley in Parowan. In 1850, Parley P. Pratt came to this valley. He called it the Little Salt Lake Valley. And it was 12 months before it was officially settled, but he raised a liberty pole to signify that they were going to claim this area. Rose that liberty pole next to Heap Springs is what it was called. It's now known as Parowan Creek to most people. There's an old pioneer home that still sits next to that spring where that was raised. That was my great-great-great-grandfather's home. We have a great love for this valley and for the development of it, and it's specifically the agriculture within this valley. It's went through the processes from the canvas dams to the hand lines and the wheel lines all the way through the pivots, and every year seems to develop more in one aspect or another to help enhance the agriculture and keep it as a foundational part of the society here in Parowan.
Parowan has actually become what they call a mother town of southern Utah because we were the first settlement south of Provo, and we were able to they were able to send people here, and then they were sent to other areas, even as far as California. A lot of the towns around here were settled after Parowan, so that's the reason they call it the mother town. My twin brother and I took the farm over, and we were 22 years old, and we were always looking over the fence to see what everybody was doing. We just learned by trial and error, I guess, to be farmers.
You know, there was a time most of the hay in the valley was raised for feed for the animals. And at one point, our father would tell us about the sheep and the cows that they would feed in the winter. But I do believe that our father and obviously others were some of the early ones that started raising hay for the market to raise and sell. And I know our dad, we're standing on currently what was our original family farm of 360 acres. We have expanded since then, but I know that our dad taught us to be very picky about the way hay was put up. You know, you would obviously sometimes it's real easy to get in a hurry and bale hay, and you end up with bales of shattered hay. And I know our dad always taught us to pay the price to put up good hay, and that price was usually middle of the night baling. If the hay wasn't right on a small farm, we could sit and wait. We could wait another night until, you know, hopefully the dew came in. But as you get bigger, that's not an option.
So when my dad got married to my mother, they moved to Parowan, and he always wanted to farm, so he started buying farms in Parowan Valley. And he started off doing custom harvesting to earn money so that he could start to buy his first farm. And as he did that, he started taking down fences and clearing brush and building bigger and bigger farms until we had 160-acre pieces. I remember when I was a little kid coming down a lot of nights with a pickup truck driving down through the fields and picking up big old boulders out of the fields so that we could produce more farmland. We've got great neighbors and we're all really good friends, so we talk about everything. We talk about hay prices, we talk about what kind of hay people are planting, what's working, what's not working. And that's the beauty about this valley, is there's no animosity or hatred towards neighbors. I mean, you know, we generally want everyone to do well.
To be a farmer in Parowan, we're not afraid to help each other. If the neighbor is in need, we will go. And they will do the same in return. And it's made us closer as friends, family, to be able to do that. The challenges we've had in the past were being able to put hay up fast enough and waiting on dew. Weather has been a factor, a big factor, in being able to put the hay up. What made it difficult to put up hay was the wind has been big as well, you know, we get the monsoons in the summer, and you know, the equipment has gotten better, but in the past it was just, you could only do so much in a day.
When I was a kid, we had three-string balers. And so I remember being young, and we'd come down, we'd try to guess the best we could when the dew would come in. So me and my dad and my brother would come down, sit in the front seat of a pickup all night until the dew would come in. And the thing that was terrible is you'd get out and feel it, you know, it's too shattery, and you didn't want to go home because you'd afraid you'd miss it. So you'd sit in that pickup all night until that dew came in, then you'd start baling. But by the time that the dew finally came in, you were so dead tired that you could hardly stay awake on the baler. And so then we moved to the big balers, and me and my worker, Servando, we'd both run balers, so we'd meet down at the farm where we were going to bale at about midnight, but the dew was never in, so we'd go up to the TA and get a pop, and then we'd start driving around the valley, you know. We'd see if other people were baling, and some people would be baling, so we'd run home and jump on our balers and try doing around, and of course it was too dry, so we'd get off. We'd drive around for so long waiting for dew that we were so tired when we started. It was just unreal, you know, so we were living on 2 or 3 hours sleep every single night. Like, I've always been very picky about how I put my hay up, but with Mother Nature, sometimes you find out you're just not in charge. I remember this really vividly one time. I'd been trying really hard to put my hay up good, and a guy had bought a truckload of hay from us, and he was strapping it down, and somebody was there with him buying hay. And I heard him talking when I was around the other side of the truck, and he says, this guy doesn't know how to put up hay. He goes, look at how dry this is and how fractured it is. And I just thought, I mean, it made me mad, because I thought if he knew how hard I was trying to put up good hay, but that just wasn't a possibility with the wind and the way things were going.
I think the biggest struggle that we've had on the Adams farm and farming in general has been that window of perfect dew. When I was a kid, we had a bunch of 3-string balers, 3 of them, and we'd come out here and somebody would come down at maybe midnight or 1 and check for dew. And if there was no dew, you'd go back to bed, the next guy'd get up at 1. And if there was no dew, the next guy'd get up at 2. It was just, we had that cycle where we'd go. But as time went on, we would do our very best to get that optimum dew. And there was times where we'd have rainstorms coming and we'd have hundreds of acres ready to bale, completely cured, ready to bale, but the wind would blow all night. And we got a storm coming, so then it's, are we gonna ruin this hay and just bale it with no dew? Are we gonna push it to get ahead of the storm? Like, what is the best option for us? And then sometimes it was premium from maybe 2 in the morning till 5:30. And so you'd start baling maybe at 1 and start pushing it a little bit. And then you'd have premium dew for 3 to 4 hours. And then it would get too much about when the sun come up, and so you'd shut down, and then you'd be down here tending stuff for a bit, and then as soon as the dew started going back off, you'd fire up as fast as you could go. And so the window of perfect dew was maybe 3 to 4 hours, most of the time.
I was in the 4th grade when I started baling hay. And my grandpa was sick, and my dad, my 2 older brothers had gone to college. So I went to school. I didn't go to school till 9 o'clock for a week or 10 days. And my dad was paranoid because we had an open cab tractor and it's sitting right over there behind that water truck. So we were having knotter problems with the old Freeman baler that I was driving. And he would stay right with me, windrow by windrow. So he had to work on the knotter, so he put me on the open cab tractor, and it was cold. It was in September. When you're little, it's cold. And he was scared to have me on that tractor, that if I hit a bump wrong, that I was gonna get thrown under the tire. It used to take us 3 months to do our hay. We never quit. If you got 1 week in between crops, that was a good year. But if there was any kind of weather, you had to put hay up all summer.
When we go to farm in this valley, there's a lot of dew for a short period of time.
and then it's dry the rest of the day. But we can cover so much ground so fast that it makes it difficult. The bottleneck comes when we start to baling hay at night. To make quality hay, we had to just bale for 3 to 4 hours, and sometimes less than that because the dew would be too heavy. So we would have to just try to time it to get the perfect hay. So a lot of the times, to keep up with our swath or keep up with how many acres, we have to bale if we like it or not in the past. And we destroyed a lot of hay quality because we were just trying to get the acres done. So some of the things we used to do to try to get around the challenges in the valley is we would try to do with stem moisture. We'd bale early, and we'd sometimes ruin more hay than we would say because it'd be too much stem moisture trying to keep the leaves on. There was always techniques of trying to put up quality hay that was a challenge because it just didn't ever work out the same every time. We even tried a spray can, a painter sprayer with high pressure spray, driving around trying to figure something out. It wasn't successful. It was a major problem in agriculture and putting up quality hay that Dave solved. And then along came the steamer, the Staheli steamer. And I was a little skeptical about the steamer at first, but one of our neighbors bought one. Mr. Donnie Roberts bought one, and I went across the street one day and watched him baling with that, and I was absolutely totally amazed because it was in the middle of the afternoon and the hay was just dry and crispy, and you don't bale hay in the middle of the afternoon. You just don't do it. And I walked over there and I looked at the hay before the baler hit it, and then I went back there and looked at that, and I couldn't believe my eyes. It was just like the dew was on and making this beautiful bale. And suddenly my mind started thinking, hey, this might be a good idea.
We'd been talking back and forth, especially us and the Adamses and the Haldermans, and we'd been talking about, these steamers, and we thought we need to find out more about these. And so we had Don come over and tell us what he thought about them. And so we were pretty excited about it, and we actually had Dave Staheli come over, and he met with us in I've got a little building outside my house right there I call the man cave, where I go when my wife kicks me out of the house. And we had a little meeting right there, and Dave came over and talked to us about them, and Don was there, and me, and Mark and Sam Halderman, and Alan and Alma Adams, and Mike Adams. And so we discussed it, and by the time that meeting was over, we all were committed that we were going to buy steamers. And so that same year, Alan and Alma Adams and Mike Adams and Mark and Sam Halderman and myself all had purchased steamers for the next year.
But it didn't take our neighbors long to figure out we were going when they couldn't go. And we were accomplishing things and we were done when they couldn't. All of those farmers, that handful of farmers, bought steamers. Several of them have bought a second one. We bought a second one. It was like we wanted to see if we could get without it. The price seemed to be at first a little high because farming equipment is expensive, but it's probably the best investment in a piece of equipment that we've had at making money for us and allowing us to have time to move forward with cropping and all of the economic advantages that it brought to us. Everybody has them now. They bale when they need to bale. It solves the rain problem. It's not a hard sell around here. Farmers pay attention to the ones that are successful. They're all successful, and they all have steamers.
I looked into the steamer, just the neighbors all had them. I saw when they were baling and I couldn't. And one of the neighbors was upgrading his steamer, and I knew they took very good care of their equipment, so that's when I purchased a used steamer. I mean, it was Adams's hay, and Alan got in the steamer with me, and it kind of fries you a little bit, because you're looking at cameras and the steamer monitor, the tractor monitor, the baler monitor, and the one thing that was kind of crazy is you can't see the baler. And you're used to looking at the baler or seeing it in the mirror. It was a little wild, I'll tell you. But it was a great experience. It was very different. So that first day that when we ran the steamer, it probably took me an hour to an hour and a half to really get comfortable with what the monitors were doing and saying, and the bells that were dinging. And after about an hour and a half, I felt pretty comfortable that I can do this. I can do this on my own place without the neighbor riding in the tractor with me. You know, I grew up baling hay. I was really young when I started baling hay, and it was Freeman 3-tie balers. And you spent your whole night looking over your shoulder, watching the strings on the baler. All the time. That's the way we grew up. To go from that to where we are today is very, very impressive. My dad grew up putting hay up with a team of horses. I watched him do it. And to see the technology today is incredible. We went from 40 acres a day to 300 because of the steamer. It's just shortened our hay production tenfold.
We don't even think about going out into the field anymore without having the steamer behind us. The steamers are engineered so that the hay, before it even hits the pickup, is hit with steam. It's so versatile because now we can change, we can adjust how much steam goes in the back part of this chamber and in the front, underneath the pickup. It's just got all these places where we can send steam, where before we had to just wait on Mother Nature.
And so when we purchased the steamer, you guys have used the word game changer. I know my dad said that once before, and that's how I feel about the steamer, is it's a total game changer. Everything that we used to do when I was a kid has changed because of the steamer behind us. And so for us to be able to go, and we used to say, okay, let's cut 150 to 200 acres, and then that's about how much we can bale. So you cut, maybe let's just say 200, then you rake 200, and then hopefully you can get 200 baled. And then by the end of that window, sometimes these guys would be calling us and say, hey, stop cutting, we didn't get as much baled last night, so don't cut that much today. Well, now, on average, we're cutting around 350 to 400 acres a day, as fast as we can go. They're pushing us to get it done, get it on the ground, and then we come with the steamer, and then it's just nonstop. And so that window has gone from perfect dew, 3 to 4 hours, to the optimum time obviously is in the evening and then bale through the night. But we have baled 24 hours a day around the clock. If you have a rainstorm coming and you've got hundreds of acres of hay on the ground and it's ready to go, you don't wait for dew, you make dew, you make steam. You go right for it as hard as you can. Every steamer, everybody that owns a steamer in this valley is out going just as hard and fast as they can. Hauling water to it, going as fast as they can, bringing the string to it, keeping it in the field, because now we can control dew, and that's never been something that we could control. So that speeds up every operation that we have now because of the steamer. It has totally changed everything we do before the steamer and everything after.
Before the Staheli steamer, we'd put up 80 acres of hay a night sometimes 100. If we had a great night, I remember hitting 120 acres and going home and telling my wife, we baled 120 acres of hay last night, like I was on cloud 9. Now, if I go under 120 to 160 acres, I've been a failure. Like, that's a terrible night. You know, 120 acres is nothing when you have a steamer. That's just getting started. I mean, you get off, the uniformity in the bales is amazing. The weight that I have in the bales, the leaf retention, like, it's not like you're catching the dew coming in and you're catching it going out. Like, you have perfect dew through the whole night, so everything is just baled up just the way you want it. The other thing that's really, really impacted our life is we're getting a lot more weight in our bales than we used to. You know, our bale weights would be anywhere from 1,250 pounds, and if you had really, really good dew on a 3/4 ton baler, you'd get it up to 1,350, somewhere in there. But now, with our steamer, we can make consistently heavy bales, and I'm telling you, we're putting a lot more weight in our bales. And it's not just water weight. Dairymen, they love that stuff.
What Dave Staheli did in doing the steamer, he did a great job at figuring out how to create the steam throughout the rest of the 24 hours of the day. So the bottleneck went away. We could travel as fast as we needed to and as much as we'd like to. Quality became easy at that point. It became something that we could manage, but was noticeable in the stack. It wasn't just a luck thing. It was something that we could operate under a management style. We could plan for the amount of acres we were going to do a day. We could cut it, we could bale it, we could haul it, and we'd put up premium hay all the time.
One of the advantages also is we have hay brokers that come around, and that steamer's been around for several years, but they're starting to say, is this steamed hay? That's one of the questions that we get a lot of time. Hey, this has been steamed, right guys? And so that's one of the things that the dairymen are starting to catch on to, is that, hey, these steamers, the consistency of the steamers from start to finish, that's huge to them. That's critical, because they know that those bales, instead of fluctuating from maybe 1,150 to 1,400 pounds, they might be consistently 1,350, 1,450, depending on which crop you're putting up. It's consistent from start to finish.
And so I remember the first year we came in, we set up 300 bales off to the side that we baled with the standard baler, and then we put all the rest of the hay up with the steamer. And so we had our buyers, because they didn't know a lot about steamers at the time, we had our buyers come and you showed them the difference. And just the consistency between with the hay that we used with the steamer from start to finish versus that other bale that other stack that we baled with as good of natural dew as we could get in a bale. That buyer knows what they want, what they're looking for. Now the buyers come in and that's one of the first things we hear. Is that steamer hay that you're in that stack of hay? Yep.
The buyers anymore, since we've gotten the steamer, want steamed hay. It's just the consistency is there.
I started buying Parowan hay in 2003. You know, before the steamer, of course, we had to rely upon dew and hope that there'd be dew to create, you know, a nice bale, leafy bale, to get some weight into the bale. They introduced the steamer, and now, you know, the farmer can create that dew. He can create what he needs as far as leaf pattern, dew, and weight of the bale. As an old farmer, as a current hay buyer, it's just a night and day difference that what the steamer has done to the hay. I remember the first time I saw it work. We were in Donnie Roberts' field here in Parowan, and not only was the leaf pattern, you know, just uniform in every way, the weight of the bales had increased. He was baling in the same pivot, you know, with a non-steamer baler and a steamer baler, and I believe the bale weight was averaged about 200 pounds difference. The consistency that the steamer provides for me as a hay buyer makes my job 1,000 times easier. And what I mean by that is the leaf pattern consistency, and also the moisture consistency is what I love about it the most. When I go up to a stack that's already been baled of steamed hay, I'll pull out my moisture probe, and it will be, if it's 11%, it's never more than a point or two off. It'll be 11, 12, or 10% the entire stack. I don't burn up barns in California or wherever at. I don't burn up stacks because I have the confidence to know that the consistency of the moisture is going to be consistent throughout the stack. Some of the dairymen, when the steamer first came out, you know, they did not want to pay for the weight. Well, if it's steam, then that means I'm paying for water. And so they were a little bit turned off by the fact. They were a little bit, I don't know, hesitant about buying the steamed hay. I can prove to them and show to them, with my electronic moisture meter that there's no moisture in the hay. It's actually lower moisture than non-steamed hay. A lot of the non-steamed hay will register at 12, 14, 15, 16% moisture on an electronic probe. With the steamed hay will be around 9 to 11% moisture. So they're not paying for steam, they're paying for leaf. And I haven't met a dairyman yet that doesn't want to pay for leaf.
Our operation, we've added probably 10 hours of baling time most days. And when you figure that many hours, that's a lot of baling that you can cover that you never could on before. We went to where what used to take 3 balers to cover 1/10 of the acreage. Now we're down to 2 balers with 2 steamers covering 10 times the acreage. And we're able to do it in whatever conditions we need it to be to put up quality hay.
What totally convinced me was on second crop one year, we were having a threat of rain. We'd cut all the hay down really fast. We started on a Tuesday morning baling hay with the steamer, and 48 hours later, and we weren't baling the whole time, by the way, but we started on Tuesday morning around 8 o'clock, and on Thursday morning at 8 o'clock, we were done with all of our hay. It was a 48-hour period of time. Unheard of, absolutely unheard of. How much is that worth to you if there's a storm coming in July? And we get a lot of them around here. And so that's the thing that would push me over the top, is that you can cut that window down from, as Mike said, maybe 7 to 8 days down to 2 to 3 days.
If we can put 50 to 100 pounds more per bale, and I think that's conservative on some ends. I think sometimes it may be a little bit higher, but if we can put that much more per bale and the quality goes up when we send that test in and we get it back, and if we can get a little bit higher on protein, RFV, TDN, different things like that, that is worth money. And so that is how the steamer pays for itself as well, is we're putting those things in there because of the steam. We're retaining those leaves where all the protein is at. That's where your money comes from. It's all based on that test.
If I have 1 baler and 1 steamer, probably replaces 3 balers. And that baling window now, instead of being ideal 2 or 3 hours a night, can be a possible 10 to 12 hours a night. And so that's for us, a great advantage to have that 1 tractor, 1 baler, 1 steamer instead of 3 tractors and 3 balers. And it financially makes a lot of sense on a farm.
In my opinion, for one thing, if you hit a rainstorm when you're farming, people don't understand this, but you can lose $50,000 in a night. So if you have a rainstorm and your hay was ready to bale and you don't get it baled, then a rainstorm comes in, you've lost all your profit. So that's one way. The other way is with that gazeka on the back to tell us our moistures, we maximize our weight limit in our bale. We maximize how much moisture we get in our bale to get more weight on them. And so instead of putting out 1,250 to 1,300 pound bales, now we can put out 1,350 to 1,400 pound bales with no problem. And so I feel like with the added weight, and especially with how we're missing rainstorms, that decreases the value in our hay, we've definitely paid for that steamer time and time again.
Steamer has paid for itself with our operation. Just having the leaf retention, the test has been higher, the bale weights have been higher. Our little bit off quality hay still is better hay for what we use on our operation.
I feel where the farmers make it back at is in the weight of the bales, in the leaf of the bales is where I feel that they make it back at. A lot of farmers will say to me, well, can't you get me $5 more a ton or $10 more a ton? And that's hard to do with a dairyman, with the end user. But it is easy to show them their bale weight before steam and after steam and how much it's increased.
Another challenge that we had was rain. Probably the biggest factor that I found as far as an economic value for the steamer is when hay gets rained on, and it always does because things rain, it becomes very dry and brittle, and when you go to bale it, the leaves shatter and the leaves don't stay attached. And so you lose 20 to 40% of the tonnage because of the hay is shattered. So what happens is we can come in and hit it with steam, and it retains and keeps a good pattern. My bale weight went up, you'll run a bale, about 1,500 pound bale, and when it gets rained on, it might be 1,100 pounds just because it got rained on. With the steamer, it brings it back up to 1,450 because you retain all those leaves. Economically, it made more of an impact the first year on rained on hay, and I believe it paid for itself in one season. On the first rained on year, this isn't just quality, this is making bad hay into good hay.
On average, the bales that we weighed this last year to check on the weights, non-steamed versus steamed was a 120 pound difference on premium hay per bale. When you go through and you put 10,000 bales on a baler and you do that at 120 pounds each, that starts to add up in terms of what you're making in farming. The margins are small in farming, and finding things that can expand those margins makes the difference between being successful and profitable or being the ones that are borderline and feeling that pressure of getting a high dollar every single year to make it. All of those circumstances make the steamer a very easy investment when you start looking at the things that you can't control as a farmer. It only takes one time of having all your hay on the ground getting rained on, and that loss that you could have gained pays for the steamer in one time. And I can give you experience after experience of how we were saved by having the steamer rather than wishing we would have had one.
It wasn't hard for me to recommend the steamer because it solved every problem that bottleneck had created. We could free up our time, we could bale 24 hours a day, we could put up quality hay, we could save rained on hay, we could pay for our equipment by the savings of it's around 120 to 160 pounds a bale. The return on that was so significant. The farmers were noticing. Well, when we started to put numbers behind it economically, we started to change out all our equipment because of the steamer. It was making that much of an economic difference.
And so when people say to us, is the steamer worth it? I could talk for days about that, because the biggest advantage of having the steamer over not having it is that you can control the thing that you've never been able to control, which is the dew. And when our neighbor bought one, the Roberts next to us here, when they bought one, and we went out and saw in the middle of the afternoon how hot it was and how perfect that hay was out there, that is a mindset shift. And you see how good of hay you can put up, and the consistency, the leaf retention, the quality, and the conditions. I can't emphasize enough that we now control the one thing we've never been able to control, and that's dew.
The biggest change that I've seen since we got the steamer is that our summer windows of hay have shortened dramatically. It used to be about a 10-day window that they would be off and on through the night, all up and down, and it's much longer days because they never have to stop during the day, but the window has shortened to 3 or 4 days.
Many nights when Alan would get up in the middle of the night and go down and check to see if the dew was on. and then he'd come home, and then 2 hours later he'd get back up and do it again. And it was a sleepless week and a half to try and get the right conditions for the hay to be baled. But now it's like Leanne said, when it's 3 days and he can go down and do it in the middle of the day and work through the night and be done, it's amazing. It's made a huge difference.
Mike tells us all the time that we have cows too, so we get paid basically 4 times a year, and it's the 3 hay crops and when we sell the cows. And so when we put up hay, that determines how our year is financially. That window of hay is very important to us.
The biggest sell point, 2 of them. I think of 2 words when I think of our steamer: consistency and convenience. The consistency of the product we put up across the board, from the start of the crop to the end of the crop, and the convenience. Just being able to be productive with our time when we're down here. Instead of waiting around for the dew to come in, being able to jump right on it and go to work. Sometimes too much dew is your enemy now, because then you have to shut down, but you can dial it in to right what you need to make the best hay possible. And it's a whole lot easier to market your hay with that type of product.
No, the steamer, I think it's changed my life. It changed my company's direction. It's given me more business, and I have more dairies asking for steamed hay. So when I go out to buy hay, I'm looking for steamed hay. I will buy non-steamed hay too, but I prefer buying steamed hay over the non-steamed hay. It's a no-brainer to me as a hay buyer, and it's increased sales in my company and increased competition even in between my dairies of wanting steamed hay. There's nothing more important, I think, that you could do to change your practices for the better than to buy a steamer. It'll completely change the way that you put up hay, and it'll transform your hay, in my opinion, to just having supreme hay all the time. The industry is changing, and I feel with the steamer that you're going to be changing. It'll make your hay better, and you'll change with the industry, or you'll get left behind.
I feel like if you don't keep up with technology, you're going to be left behind. I remember baling hay from the 1st of June till the 1st of October. We don't do that anymore. We can cut 300 acres a day, and we can bale 300 acres a day. And we're done. And we get some time off to do some other things.
The steamer has changed our life. I say we because I mean my family, because it hasn't just changed my life, but the main thing that I can tell you is it's been better for having a family and farming, combining those 2 things. So one of the hardest things about farming and being married to a farmer, if you'd ask my wife, is that the work's never done. I mean, you go to bed knowing you have 100 things on the list you need to do, and you never get them done. So when we're in haying season, like, you never see your spouse. But here's the main difference that I really love about the steamer. Well, the number 1 thing is it makes beautiful hay. The number 2 thing is that thing's reliable. But like, I start steaming about the same time every night. I go get my baler ready, my steamer ready, and I start it at about 7:30 at night. Then I go in and eat dinner, shower, get everything ready so that when I get on the baler, I'm ready to go. And then right at dark, I start baling. And before, I was in such a panic that I never took time to eat dinner with the family. So I would say it's definitely impacted my life and making it better to be around me as a farmer for my wife and kids.
It's changed the industry. It's changed putting up hay. It's changed agriculture. It's changed our way of life as a family, because when you're trying to bale and you're up 3 or 4 times a night trying to get the perfect dew, and you're not getting sleep, and you're trying to farm and you get rained on, all of the different factors that come with farming, it took a lot of pressure off.
I said, I just talked to my wife in Florida, who's there soon to come home from kind of a summer trip. She says, you make sure you tell those people that because of the steamer that you get to spend more time at home with me.
There's a few things on the farm that once you get them, you'll never go back. And the number one thing for us is a steamer. I don't know of anybody that would ever even think of getting rid of their steamer because, I mean, we'll be talking on the phone, us and the Adamses. I'll be talking to Alan Adams as there's a rainstorm coming, or we've got some slightly rained on hay that usually would be baled up shattering. And we'll be talking on the phone and he'll say, can you imagine what we ever did before we had these steamers? And I mean, that's a constant conversation through this valley. We can't even imagine what we do putting up hay without it. Like it literally will change your life, the way that you farm. I'll tell you one thing that's really cool is we kind of help each other out around here, and if somebody gets in a bind, like if we don't have hay to put up and some of our neighbors do, or vice versa, we've had instances where we've had 4 or 5 steamers on the same field at one time, helping our neighbors put up hay. And I'll tell you what, that is the coolest thing ever, is when 5 of your best friends and your neighbors are all in the same field with balers and steamers putting up hay, and watching that go in the bale and knowing you're helping somebody out, or else having your neighbors help you out. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Changing agriculture, changing lives.